Hello, this video is a response to Peter and the assertion that we do need a wall for the purpose or for a foreign policy measure. So I'd like to start with saying that on the basic assertion that we need a wall, I actually agree. I think where I disagree with you is on what it represents, and I would assert that it should be viewed as a temporary, a stopgap solution, and that we should seek policies with regard to Mexico and Central America that eventually make the wall unnecessary. So to start out with, my background, I grew up in Cochise County, which is in Arizona, right there on the border. My father was a border patrol agent, so I'm very familiar with the hazards of the border crossings that happen there all the time. So, in my opinion, I believe that having a well-regulated border to be able to secure against potential dangers is something we do need. And I do agree that physical security is a part of that security measure. So we do need something like a physical barrier. One aspect that I do think gets overlooked, or is at best only ever given lip service, is addressing the root cause of why we have an immigration problem in the first place. So we have to remember, I think, illegal immigration is not the actual central issue. I think it's a symptom of a central issue. So first, you had brought up how illegal immigration presents a security risk. You have cartels, you have smugglers. I would be interested in addressing why there's drug traffic, there's drugs and fentanyl coming into the United States. Okay, why is that happening? What are the material conditions in the United States and Mexico that are causing this to happen? And on the issue of human smuggling, I would like to know, okay, well, once again, what's going on in Mexico? What's going on in the United States? Why do people feel the need to come into the United States? On the topic of labor, you had mentioned, and this kind of gets to that issue, is how unregulated immigration creates economic strain on public services, but also on pricing out of labor. For the labor piece, I think there is a solution in mind that could address the issue. And I think this is raising labor standards across the United States. So raising labor standards concurrently with giving undocumented immigrants some kind of legal status, such that they would be able to take part in the system without fear of having to be arrested or deported. What this would do is that it would put the immigrant laborers at the same level of legal protection as American workers. And what this would do is it would make them much harder to exploit. They would actually have to get paid according to their actual value. So this would mean that the cost of employing an immigrant versus an American citizen would be closer together and make it less likely that they're going to price out Americans anyways. So, and this would make sure that people are getting hired based on actual skill and work ethic, and not just like, oh, you're cheap because you came from another country, and if you tell people that I'm underpaying you, you can't do anything because we're going to report you to the authorities. So another thing you mentioned is that we needed a wall to ensure that only legal immigration takes place. So they go through immigration attorneys, it gets adjudicated by a court, they get the necessary documentation, all of that stuff. And I agree on this point largely too. However, I would just add that part of the solution is going to have to involve addressing the backlog of cases that we have. I think last time I checked in 2024, there were something like 3 million cases in the queue waiting to get adjudicated. So we need to significantly increase the personnel, whether the lawyers or judges, whoever we need, to be able to address this backlog. Because if we don't, you're going to continue to have an issue where someone's going to be waiting for multiple years to get their case adjudicated, which increases the incentive to try to cross the border illegally in the first place. So finally, you had mentioned that the wall was a symbol of like American sovereignty. This is the point that I probably disagree with on the most. And to me, I don't view the wall as an indicator of sovereignty. I view it as an indicator of a problem. As evidence, I would just point toward our northern border. We don't have the issues with Canada that we have with Mexico, so a border wall isn't necessary there. I visited Blaine, Washington a few years ago, and I visited a park that was directly there on the border. And for anyone who's been there, they know, there's no wall there. There's maybe like a foot tall berm, and then there's a few markers that are just saying, hey, there's a border here. But besides that, I could just walk over the berm and go into someone else's, go up to their driveway and knock on their door and say hello. And they'd probably be fine with it because they're Canadian. But this leads to my final point, which is that, I think the wall is necessary right now, but I think that we should work toward a continent where the wall is unnecessary, just like it is with the U.S.-Canada border. what I would like to see is I would like to see the U.S. join forces with the governments of Mexico and the other Central American nations um, in a non-coercive manner, in a way that respects national sovereignty. But I'd like us to be able to say, hey, we have a mutual interest in your stability and your economic prosperity. So from our perspective, it's a security issue. But I would hope that we would be able to encourage policies that would stabilize Central America and lead to a more open and cooperative North American continent in general. I would like to be able to get to a point where Mexico, or people from Mexico and other Central American nations, they can come freely into the United States without being a security risk, but also feel secure in their own nation's prosperity, such that they don't feel compelled to risk their lives crossing a desert to try to get into the United States. So in short, my pie in the sky ideal would be that we have a stable Central America, such that one day we could achieve a sort of North American Schengen area like what they have in the European Union. Right now, this is obviously unrealistic in the short term, but I think the wall debate should be framed in such a way, that we acknowledge that it is in fact an indicator of an ongoing problem to be solved and not the problem per se. So, anyways, that's all I have to say. So it was good watching your video, and I wish you well. Thank you.